Hello everybody and welcome back to another video for the day. We're going back into an old subreddit that I actually needed to dust off a little bit because I haven't touched it in literal months, r/neckbeardstories, and yes, I do know it is one of those storytime format videos, much like Tales of Neckbeard, so maybe they'll go hand in hand. I don't know, let's see how well this one does, and if you would like to see more of these storytime format videos, be sure to hit that like button, leave a comment down below, and if you have not already, subscribe and turn on notifications. Okie dokie, let's go. Our first story comes to us from username Hockstetter. My not so fun time dating a neckbeard. So to preface this post, this is my only time making an actual story post. This is also being typed on a phone, so I'm sorry if the format is bad and or confusing. The neckbeard in question will be called Jay. This story will also contain some NSFW wording, so there will be a warning before that part of the story. If you wish to skip over it, please use they them pronouns for me if you choose to discuss/talk to me in the comments. Thank you. So, when I first started high school, I had little to no friends at all. Most of the ones I had in middle school moved or simply had no interest in being my friends anymore. And I didn't particularly mind it, but I do have a tendency to talk a lot, so I liked talking to other people. I made a friend around the first couple of weeks that we will call Z, and he was pretty nice. I didn't really have any issues with him other than the occasional norm down mood most high school students have. But moving on, he had a friend, Jay, that I got along with when I would sit and talk with both of them. Jay wasn't really very open about his neckbeardiness up front, of course. The basics I knew about him was that he liked anime, hated furries, and liked Z at least a little bit. As the time in high school progressed, Z moved on to his preferred group of friends, and I moved on with mine. We still talked to each other occasionally, but I mainly hung around Jay and his friends. Like any normal group of friends in high school, we would make jokes and call each other names, but we knew it was playful and no one really meant it. It got progressively weirder when Jay would make sexual jokes about me, around the time I came out as transgender non-binary. I stupidly dismissed this behavior because I didn't want to cause an argument, as I was very much unable to handle arguing in high school. Jay was very into video games, anime, dark humor, and the normal things neckbeards are usually interested in, but he was pretty competitive when it came to liking these things. He found very ableist and anti-autistic humor his favorite, which confused me, but I pretended to enjoy it for the sake of friendship. He often complained about leftist FJWs and generally anyone who would stand up for general human rights. He also made very racist jokes, mainly towards black people, and used the excuse that he has black friends, so it was okay. He also tried to act really tough and stand up for me when me and his other friends would joke around, which made me very uncomfortable. I should have taken the too far jokes as a hint that I shouldn't be hanging around him, but I was very clingy once I got friends that I could enjoy being around, which is where it all went downhill. Jay had found mouths into our friendship that I was pretty clingy, and he decided to take advantage of it by asking me out, to which I also stupidly said yes to. I do struggle with mental health issues, and this did cause me to mistake platonic affections with romantic attraction to him, which he had apparently taken into account. Now, I'm not into shaming people for their appearance, example the typical neckbeard appearance people describe, and Jay was not actually bad looking, but he did definitely lack in personal hygiene and facial hair grooming for someone who was 16, though he often uses autism as an excuse for this, and I just never really cared enough to question it. So when me and Jay began our relationship, I was really attached to him as I had really bad attachment problems when I was younger. I followed him everywhere in between classes, would end up very close to him at lunch despite the BO, and cling onto him. I even ignored his sexual comments after me coming out as asexual as well, brushing them off as just jokes and nothing more. This was around the time he was starting to show me his actual personality. TW, this is the section where the NSFW themes come in. Okay, I'm just gonna put a little timestamp as you can skip to that if you aren't up for hearing that kind of stuff. I would sometimes have him over at my house to hang out, and he would constantly joke about how women belonged in the kitchen, that trans people were cancer, and that I was the only exception. and about how peds were over-stigmatized, and he would often try to talk to me about the types of off-brand and video games, more off-brand, he liked with me, again, knowing I was asexual and as repulsed in my case. After about a year, I had moved to an apartment with my mother, and it was closer to where Jay lived than my last house. He started to invite me over to his house. Once I had began online schooling due to the public school in my area being pretty bad, I did enjoy the first couple of visits. We just talked and went to the park a few blocks from his house and walked around. It was relatively normal. It was when we started to text more rather than talk in person due to not being in public schools that he started to ask me about doing sexual favors for him. I would also constantly talk about how he thought it was hot that I was a guy and a girl. I do not identify with either, not even then. And he would talk about parts of my body that made me very dysphoric in such a sexual way that it made me nauseous with an anxiety-induced way. He compared me off-brand characters and often talked about their different activities he wanted to do with me, despite telling him I didn't like the way any of it sounded. I told him several times in the text that I was uncomfortable and that I was scared and repulsed by the intimacy, and that I did not like talking about it. He would get all upset about it after I told him this, and guilt-trip me into putting myself down, and I eventually just half-butted some commentary back to him to get him to shut up. It seemed to work for a while until I eventually went to visit him again. The state of this boy's room was really gross to me, and definitely not the thing that would put someone in the mood to do anything sexual. His closet was piled with dirty and semi-clean clothes. His floor was covered with trash, and it smelled like just straight up dog in the house, and it was a little odd to me that he could be so sexually explicit. We would cuddle often when I came over because I did enjoy platonic closeness, but he would eventually start moving way too close up against me. Eventually, he did inform me that it was an boy, and he wanted me to touch him. I was really uninterested, and I tried to talk my way out of it, even using the old "I'm tired" excuse to try and get out of the situation. He just kept complaining that he can't control it, and he needed to do something to get rid of it, and I eventually gave in and did it because I wanted him to shut up about it. To this day, I refuse to date cis men because this situation has scared me and scarred me so much. I much prefer the other non-binary asexual individuals. I did eventually get out of the relationship, and during the last few months, I was in another relationship with someone who makes me feel much more safe, but admittedly, this was not fair to either of them. I just did not want to face Jay's angry outbursts at me when I tried to break it off, and I was genuinely scared of him. Not that this at all makes what I did okay. I fully take responsibility for my actions. A TLDR, neckbeardy high school guy and I dated, he complained about me not wanting to do sexual favors for him and constantly fetishized me being trans. I found someone safer and am no longer in contact with him. Our next story comes to us from username Mikey Goger. A neckbeard harassed me in front of my own mother, and she didn't even notice. This happened years back when I was roughly 11 or 12, so I don't remember 100% of the detail, but I definitely remember more than enough. It was a day like any other one. I was in my room, in my bed, and on my phone doing basically nothing and staring at the screen. My mother walked into my room telling me she will invite a school friend over for dinner. I personally really hate it when she invites people over and didn't plan on getting out of my room before he was gone. He finally arrived, and I was hiding in my room as per usual. They were in the kitchen/living room area of the house, and I didn't have a care in the world, until my mother got into my room whining about how he really wants to see me and was so excited to meet you, which I didn't think was too weird, cause I was just a clueless 11-year-old. WTF do I know about the world? I got out of my room expecting to see some average guy my mother would be friends with, only to get surprised by a neckbeard. At the time, I wasn't aware of what a neckbeard trademark was, but now that I think about it, he fits the typical description of a neckbeard when the appearance is in question. Only thing missing was a fedora and an anime t-shirt. He was very overweight, had a prickly beard, and just had a neckbeard energy. I went into the kitchen, and I was forced to sit down and eat with them. The whole table experience was very weird. He didn't even try to talk to my mother and kept trying to talk to me, an 11-year-old eating lukewarm soup. I was shy and didn't want to talk to him, and he kept telling me about his ex-girlfriend. Mind you, I am 11 and he is telling me about his ex-girlfriend. He kept talking about his girlfriend until he finally said we were best friends and finally decided to confess my love for her, which clearly means she wasn't his girlfriend. He went on talking about how she is moving to a different country and leaving him behind. He finally started telling me about the dramatic confession scene, which even to my childish brain sound fake as heck. He said he wrote her a song, got onto one knee in front of her at an airport, and recited the song as she cried and finally ran away as he tried to hold her hand. He asked me if I wanted to read the song he wrote, and as a little kid wanting to be a producer/songwriter, I was ready to roast and toast his writing skills, so I decided to say yes and read his little poem without realizing my mother would be angry at me for insulting her friend, which made me regret saying yes. Not gonna lie, I don't remember much of the song, but I surely remember it being less than mediocre and too boring to read. I just ended up half-butting some comments and hoped I can go back to my room because I finished my soup. I wanted to go, but he asked me to stay a little more because he is going away soon anyways, and forced by my mom, I had to stay. He didn't want to finish his food even after my asking him to, and he said something along the lines of, "Let's move to the couch before we go." We moved from the table onto the couch, and he forced me to sit onto his lap. I really didn't want to do that. As a mildly edgy 11-year-old, anyone touching me was a big no-no. But once again, mother made me because I was being mean. As soon as I went near him, he grabbed me with the energy of a billion Mountain Dews and couldn't move. He pushed me so hard against him that I actually struggled to breathe. At the time, I wasn't aware of the concept of, but thinking back at it, he was at the least starting to get hard and feel really gross thinking about it. I was forced into the hug for several minutes as he talked to my mother until he finally said he had to get going. But there was a catch. He wanted a goodbye kiss. Even as a kid that cannot comprehend the concept of pets, I was extremely uncomfortable and clearly didn't want to do it. I started to run away to my room, but once again, my mother made me. I got close to him, and once again he grabbed me by the head and tried to kiss me on the lips, which I luckily managed to turn my head away, but his crusty lips and nasty beard still touched my cheek before I managed to once and for all run away. If you're wondering why my mother was acting like this, I can't tell you anything with 100% certainty, but what I can say is that our culture is very different, and she isn't the smartest at reading a situation. I have no idea if she even remembers the incident, but if she does, knowing her, she would shove it under the rug just like any other time I was harassed and blame me instead of him. And with that, that is going to have to be it with the video. If you guys want to be absolutely amazing and see more of the storytime format videos in the future, be sure to hit that like button and see if we can get the channel's video to about like 1,200 likes seems about appropriate. And also leave a comment down below, start up them wholesome internet discussions, and if you have not already, subscribe and turn on notifications. I'll be sure to see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and bye-bye.